Welcome to part 3 of week 2, Eco 501, sections 1 and 2, summer semester 2021, BRAC University. In parts 1 and 2, we more or less covered all the topics of week 2. In this part, the final part, we're going to cover some miscellaneous topics which are relevant to this week, and we will also be working on these topics throughout the entire of our course. So let's screen share. All right. So markets are defined in many ways. The definition that you're seeing in this particular slide right now is that markets are defined in 3 types: a product market, a labor market, and a capital market. We've already defined the concept of market, that it's an institutional arrangement. That means it's a formal place where buyers and sellers meet to voluntarily exchange something. Buyers voluntarily buy, sellers voluntarily sell. Nobody is being forced to do whatever. But in a product market, the one on the top, the firms are the sellers. Over here, the one on the top, the households are the buyers. So in a product market, the good travels from the firms to the household. Product means a finished product, a final product. For example, a Coke. The Coke, when it will be sold, it's not going to be sold as an input in some other production. It will be sold for final consumption. And that consumption will be made by the households. The second type of market is a market where inputs are transacted. In our simple model, the inputs are very simple. They're labor, capital. One group will argue that there can be another input, which is land. Land is more or less the same as capital. So we're identifying the input market as a labor market or a capital market. Who supplies labor? In this case, the labor is supplied by the households. How many hours are they're going to be working in the job market? That decision is made by the households. Who buys this labor? The firms buy the labor. So if we look at the second one, what is happening? The households are selling the labor in the labor market. Firms are buying. They're hiring the labor. Hiring means basically they're buying the labor, okay? In the capital market, savings are transacted from sellers to buyers. In the capital market, who buys capital? Banks buy. Investment firms buy. Who sells the capital? The households will be selling the capital from their excess savings. So what happens is, look, households are, this is a two-way market. How? Households are selling their savings to the banks. For example, I have money in the bank. I'm not going to use all of it at any time, okay? Bank also knows that. Sometimes I freeze a certain amount of capital as a fixed deposit, okay, for a certain time. So the bank knows within this time, the bank has access to my savings. Now, next is the borrow and invest. So what is happening? The households are giving their savings to the capital market, and it's being bought by the banks or other invest houses. The reverse is also true. Banks also sell capital to the households. So in the second one, in the labor market, it's a one-way chain. The households sell their labor, or they decide how many hours they're going to work on the labor market. The firms buy this labor or hire the workers. In the capital market, it can be two-way. Households can be sellers, households can also be buyers of capital. Banks can be buyers of capital, banks can also be sellers of capital. Now in our course, we are not interested in the labor market. We are not interested in the capital market. We're interested in the product market. And that's why we have mentioned over here that this is the market we will analyze in this course. Okay, the next concept that we want to introduce is, what do we mean by microeconomics what do we mean by macroeconomics. At the beginning of today's video lectures, and also during our discussion class when we started, we have said that managerial economics is nothing but an applied branch of economics that borrows tools from micro. So what is micro, and why are we not interested in macro? The branch of economics that discusses how individual firms and households interact in a market setting is known as microeconomics. This branch of economics also discusses how the sum total of all decisions of households, sum total of all decisions of firms affect the total distribution of wealth in a market, i.e., who gets what and why. End of story. This branch is more relevant to managerial economics because we are looking at how managers of a business firm are making a decision. We are not interested in decision making of how the government makes the decision. Okay, that is known as macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is the branch of economics that discusses three core topics of the economy: unemployment, inflation, and monetary policy. This branch of economics, the macroeconomics, is less relevant to Eco 501, managerial economics. So the summary of what this particular slide is that we are going to look at microeconomics almost 99.9% times of the time, and we're not going to look at macroeconomics. Now, the next concept that we want to introduce is, what are the science of economics? What tools are we going to use? To explain theories, economics relies heavily on hypotheses and models. If you've done a basic statistics course, which you probably have or will be doing in this semester alongside Eco 501, you will be coming to the concept of hypotheses. In a statistical course, hypothesis is presented formally with lots of notations, with a mathematical equation, etc. But the ideology of hypothesis, it just makes a statement about the population. Any statement. If price increases, people tend to buy less. Ceteris paribus. What does ceteris paribus mean? We will discuss later. What does tend to buy mean? We will discuss later. For the time being, we're just making a verbal statement. In a statistical course, this statement would have been made with null hypotheses and an alternative hypothesis. Okay, we are not going to do that. We're trying to keep things as simple as possible so that you understand the philosophy of a concept rather than its technical jargons. It's just a hypothesis, nothing but a statement about a population. Just like over here, if the price increases, ceteris paribus, people tend to buy less. Okay, you're not happy with the households. You want to write the hypothesis like this. If the price increases, ceteris paribus, firms tend to sell more. Whichever way you look at it, from the firm's point of view or the household's point of view, this is just a statement. Now, how does economics present this statement? Economics uses a model. What is a model? A model is an abstraction from reality. We will be discussing this in more detail during the class. Okay, and you also have to read the text. How will the above hypothesis be represented? We can represent it with a table, which we will see in the class. We can represent it with a graph, this same statement. We can also represent this statement through an equation. We can do econometric analysis of this, and etc. and whatnot. Now, at the beginning of today's class and also in week 1, we have assumed that this course is going to be online course throughout this whole semester. So what do? The course will focus on graphical presentation of theories. The course, I'm repeating it again, the course will focus on graphical presentation of theories. The same theory that can be explained through mathematics and econometrics can also be explained with graphs. Now the question is why I will be looking at mathematics, but with less emphasis, because in an online class, from my experience from the previous semester, I have found that explaining mathematical concepts online is a very challenging matter. Okay, so we will be focusing more on graphs. However, that does not mean that the course will compromise with quality. Every effort will be made to try to make you think. So you don't have to be, it's good, okay, if you're a mathist, you're afraid of maths, then this is good news. But it's not very good news, because I will be making intuitive questions which you will tackle. Now, this is a concept that's not going to be relevant to today's class, but it will be relevant throughout the whole course. Why do economists disagree? Economics has two branches. One branch, the left side of this slide, focuses on a concept called positive economics. It just says, because of this, therefore that. Because the price increased, supply increased. Okay, now I'm going to change the hypothesis, okay? Because the supply was less, the price was very high. This is positive economics. We're just observing. Now, I'm going to look at the same problem from a normative point of view. Because the harvest was low, there was less supply of paddy. Therefore, the price of rice increased from and it became 3 times more. Notice this thing. The same thing is happening if I did not use the word rice. Because supply was less, the price of X increased. Because the supply of paddy was less, the price of rice increased, and it went beyond the purchasing power of the common person. This second example, when we're using the commodity and mentioning it as rice, which is a staple starch for the people of Bangladesh, it becomes a moral issue. This is known as normative economics. Let me give you another example. You go to the doctor measures your body temperature. He finds it's 102. Okay, he just writes down it's 102, end of story. And then he checks your blood pressure. It should be 120 by 80. It's actually 150 by 90. He just writes it down. Now, based on this, what conclusion will you draw? The patient should go to the hospital. The moment we use the word should or should not, we are imposing some ethical and moral dimensions of a phenomenon. The moment we use the word should or should not, we are imposing things that the society wants to see or does not want to see. If the price of BMW cars double tomorrow morning, okay, it will come on the papers, but it's not going to hit the headlines. But if the price of rice shoots to 2 times or 3 times more in a span of, say, over 1 week, then that will become big news in the newspapers and also throughout the whole economy. Why? Because then it becomes an obligation of the government to intervene. So economics is of 2 types. One is just theoretical economics. We just observe. This happens, this does not happen. End of story. But economics is also social science. A social science is a science that deals with people. Okay? So as a social science, economics also asks questions of ethics and morality, like there should be more schools and hospitals. The answer to these questions are not pure science. Some people will argue, we don't need more schools. Another group will argue, we need more schools. So you won't be able to agree. But when we look at positive economics, if the price increase, ceteris paribus, people tend to buy less. There's more or less agreement on it. So when you see in the newspapers that two economists, Mr. X and Mr. Y, are disagreeing, they are probably disagreeing on a normative issue. The government should have allocated more money in a particular component of the budget. Another person says, no, it's okay. This type of argument is an argument in the gray patch of a spectrum. It's not in the black patch, it's not in the white patch. Black patch is an established matter. White patch is also an established matter. When economics discusses something in the gray patch, then there will be confusion among two different people. The conclusions may be different. This is our last slide for week 2. The participants are advised to go through the following text. This text has already been shared to all previously by email. Stiglitz, chapter 1, pages 1 and 22. The 3 advices are: please see the pre-recorded video lectures before a discussion class on Saturday and Tuesday. I am uploading this on Friday night, so by Saturday morning it will be ready for you. And please attend the discussion class. This is number 2. Why? Because hints on the course may be given out. Try to participate as much as you can. Okay, but don't over participate. Then I won't be able to answer everybody's questions. This is an online course. So that brings us to the end of part 3 and also the end of week 2 video lectures. Whatever gaps you have found, if you have come to this part from the beginning, then you already may have started asking questions that this thing wasn't mentioned in the video lecture. This thing could have been mentioned. Note them down and we will discuss in detail after during the discussion class in the evening, whether that's Saturday for section 2 or Tuesday for section 1. So everybody stay well and hope to see you during the discussion class. Bye. That's the end of week 2.